It all begins with the sound of a heart monitor echoing in the dark. Gradually, the sound becomes clearer and more constant. Suddenly, our protagonist opens his eyes, completely frightened and confused. He then finds himself standing in the middle of a hospital corridor, completely bewildered. Immediately afterwards, desperate cries are heard requesting that a patient's oxygen supply be increased. Amid the commotion, a medical team passes by carrying a man on a stretcher. One of the doctors begins to perform CPR very forcefully. He continues the procedure without stopping for even a second. Our boy just watches the whole scene from afar as if he weren't there. But upon closer inspection, he wonders who that doctor is. A blue aura shines around the boy, and our hero senses something familiar. His eyes widen when he finally realizes what is happening. The doctor performing CPR was himself in a younger version. Another doctor shouts to charge the defibrillator to 200 joules, and so they prepare the equipment to give the patient a shock. Even with the shock, one of the doctors warns that the heart rhythm is not returning, and then the monitor freezes completely, showing a straight line. The younger version of our protagonist is in shock, not knowing what to do. Meanwhile, the chief physician observes the situation with a very serious expression. Everyone around the stretcher falls silent because there is nothing more to be done. Then the oldest doctor, in a firm voice, orders everyone to stop. He officially declares the time of death of that patient. The deceased's name was Kim Jung-soo, and the time of his departure was 3:22 in the morning. Our protagonist remains standing there, merely reliving that terrible moment. Then a hand covers the man's body with a white sheet. Our boy's face fills with sweat and anguish as he recalls the scene. His eyes show all the trauma that day left in him. Suddenly, he wakes up startled, in the middle of a crowded train. Apparently, it was all just a nightmare while he was traveling. Still half asleep, our hero wonders if he actually fell asleep. So he slaps himself to wake up because the day at the hospital is going to be very busy. Immediately afterwards, he puts his hand inside his coat to get something, and with a smile on his face, he shows his identification badge. Thus, we discovered that his name is Shin Seon-han, and he is a doctor. From there, he recalls that since he was little, he had an incredible talent with knives. In a flashback, his parents arrive home, calling for little Seon-han. His mother finds him in the kitchen and asks what he was up to. The little boy then turns around with a knife in his hand and a very strange smile. His parents panicked, thinking their son had been badly injured. But upon closer inspection, they are completely shocked by what they see. Little Sanhan had sliced a whole fish perfectly. Because of this, his father declared him a prodigy and heir to the family restaurant, and so he grew up believing that this would be his destiny. But everything changed when he saw an interview with the top surgeon in Korea. During the interview, the presenter prepares to ask the professor one last question. He then asks for advice for students who dream of being like Bakyui Shin. The great surgeon thinks for a moment before giving his answer. In a very humble way, he says that he doesn't yet consider himself a great doctor. Meanwhile, our youngest hero watched everything intently on TV. Bakyui Shin continues to say that he still has a long way to go, but he remembers an old European saying from 200 years ago. According to him, 3 things are necessary to be an excellent surgeon. The first one is to have an eagle eye to see everything. The second is to have the delicate touch of a lady when operating. And finally, a lion's heart, so you'll never be afraid of anything. The doctor explains that one needs to be kind and considerate like a lady, but at the same time, have the determination and courage of a lion. Our boy is completely inspired by those words. The name of that man, Bakyui Shin, would forever be etched in his memory. Fascinated by the interview, our protagonist thought that doctor was amazing. That moment was like a ray of light in his childhood, which had felt somewhat lost. And as they say, whoever finds a light in the darkness, he will walk towards her for the rest of his life. Full of determination, he then shouts to his father that he is going to become a doctor. But to his surprise, the old man refuses immediately and becomes quite angry. Seon-han doesn't understand the reason and asks why he isn't happy with the news. The father then asks if he has forgotten what kind of family they are. Immediately afterwards, he mentions that they have been merchants for over 30 years, and that the family restaurant has already been featured on TV 12 times. In addition to having thousands of reviews and a very high rating of 4.89, the Shin family's sashimi restaurant was his father's greatest pride. That is why he says that his son's destiny was not to be a doctor, but rather a master of knives. He insists that Sonhan was born with a talent for blades equal to his own. Our boy then retorts that he wants to use his gift to save people, not to cut fish. Even so, his mother, who was in the kitchen, also refused the request. Sonhan gets angry and says that he is working very hard in his studies, but his father says that this is precisely the problem. In a very direct way, he says that his son is just as stupid as he is. That's why he thinks it's impossible for the boy to become a doctor. Then, to cheer him up, the old man offers him a rare fish to cut open, but our hero refuses and angrily pushes the fish away. Immediately afterwards, he picks up the fish and says he'll keep trying until he succeeds. And with incredible speed, he slices the fish, leaving it perfect. After that, he runs off shouting that he's going to be a doctor no matter what. But the reality was harsh, and his grades at school were terrible. Despite this, our protagonist doesn't give up and promises that he will get through it. In the middle of studying, her sister enters the room asking for help. He complains, but nevertheless sews her skirt with incredible skill. The girl loves the result, but Sinhan kicks her out so he can go back to studying. So without wasting any more time, our hero enters the hospital to begin his first day of work. Upon arrival, a nurse informs him that a patient in room 1705 is experiencing chest pain. Performing an electrocardiogram is a routine task for interns, so he prepares for the exam. After finishing the procedure, our boy takes the results to analyze the data. However, he notes that today's exam looks a little different from the one done the day before. Because of this, he suggests notifying the doctor in charge, but the nurse doesn't seem to see anything wrong. He then explains that the patient has atrial fibrillation and that it would be good to check it even though it is not serious. The girl is surprised by his attention and says that if he continues like this, he will do very well in his internship. Our boy awkwardly acknowledges the compliment and says he hopes it's true. Suddenly, a group of older doctors appears, asking about the conversation, and among them is Kim Byom-soo, a third-year resident known as Cobra. Seon-han then bows in a sign of respect, clearly nervous in his presence. Immediately afterwards, one of the doctors whispers that our hero came from Ilwon University. He even mocks it, saying it was that college that closed down due to corruption. Dr. Kim then casts a look of pure contempt at our boy. Standing there, unsure what to do, feeling the pressure of the moment, breaking the silence, Cobra asks if he has already checked on patient number 1705. Our protagonist confirms and delivers the electrocardiogram results. The doctor then asks for the previous night's record so that he can compare the two. Swan explains that the rhythm changed from normal to atrial fibrillation, and that's why he thinks it's best to take a look, even if it's nothing serious. Suddenly, a terrifying serpentine aura appears behind Dr. Kim. Cobra then asks our boy his name, to which he immediately replies that it is Shin Son-han. Unexpectedly, Dr. Kim closes the clipboard with the exam results, and to our hero's surprise, he praises him for the good work. The doctor says it's great when an intern organizes everything and reads the results. Our boy then breathes a sigh of relief because it was worth the preparation, because he knows he needs to make a good impression on the residents in order to be evaluated. But Cobra immediately afterwards jabs at him, saying that someone from a failing college has to work hard anyway. And he's still telling our boy to learn a lot before he leaves. Our protagonist understands immediately that he has no chance of remaining in the hospital. The doctor explains that it is difficult for someone from outside to survive there, but Sonhan replies that he came prepared to face this situation. Cobra then adjusts his glasses, somewhat surprised by the response. Immediately afterwards, our hero asks if there's a chance if he becomes intern of the year. This idea leaves the boy with a look full of determination, because the YK Intern of the Year award is their only hope. This is a title given to only one intern per year, and it is a great honor. However, one of the doctors mocks the doctor, saying that no one from outside the region has ever won this award. Even so, Dr. Kim tells our hero to try his luck and keep trying. Seon-han then thanks them for the guidance and bows as they walk away. but inside he is burning with rage and vows that he will survive there. He dreams of one day being recognized as an excellent doctor, just like his great idol, Professor Baek Uishin. Suddenly, a female voice calls him Seonhan Oppa. It's another intern asking if he's had lunch yet. He says he's leaving, and she replies that she needs to finish some things first. The girl complains that she has too many consent forms to pick up. Without thinking twice, our protagonist offers to help her. She gets overjoyed and asks him to finish quickly and come back. Grateful, she hands the papers to Sunan and calls him her savior, and she even promises to buy him a coffee later as a thank you. Our boy gives an awkward smile as he picks up the papers to help. He then starts looking at the forms to see which patients they are. And right in the first one he sees the name Kim Jung-soo. The boy is shocked because that name was not unfamiliar to him. He immediately remembers the nightmare he had on the train earlier, for it was exactly the same name as the patient who had departed in his dream, the one whose departure time was declared at 3:22 a.m. Still, our protagonist tries to convince himself that it's just a coincidence. Then he goes to the patient's room to get the signature on the form. He opens the curtain and calmly calls for Mr. Kim Jung-soo. Inside, the patient was sitting on the bed with a woman beside him. But when our hero looks at the man's face, he is completely paralyzed. The gray hair and sunken eyes were exactly like those in her dream. Furthermore, the darker skin also matched his memory. Without a doubt, it was the same man he had seen leave in his nightmare. Our protagonist stares at the patient, unable to believe what he is seeing. Finally, the name on the room sign confirms that it is indeed Kim Jung-soo. The woman next to the patient then asks what the doctor wants. Somewhat awkwardly, our boy tries to hide the astonishment he felt. He then says that he came to explain the procedure that will be done that day. So he begins talking to the patient and the young woman about the surgery. But deep down, he still wonders if it's all just a big coincidence. Suddenly, the woman calls him, and our hero turns to see what she wants. In a worried voice, she asks if her father will be all right. The girl shows the form and points to the part that says he can leave. Our boy then reassures her, saying that they list everything there, even if the chance is minimal. He explains that this is a common procedure done more than 10 times a day, and that the chance of something going wrong is almost zero. Furthermore, he boasts that only the best doctors in Korea work there. His words calmed the girl down and brought a relieved smile to her face. The patient's daughter then thanks him and tells her father not to be afraid. Our boy says goodbye with a smile and leaves the room feeling more peaceful. Time passes, and the workday is finally coming to an end. It's already 8 o'clock at night, and our hero is completely exhausted. But to his dismay, he still has to stay for the night shift. Exhausted, he goes to the dormitory to rest a bit. There he finds his roommate sweating profusely at the gym. The boy is training hard, lifting very heavy weights. Apparently, he doesn't miss a single day of exercise, so as not to lose muscle. His name is Kim Gyun-wook, and he is very focused on bodybuilding. He greets our protagonist and asks if he was also training. Jun-wook says with a smile that if he jumps for a day, he'll lose his muscles. Our hero then throws himself onto the bed and complains that the day was crazy. Curious, his colleague asks if he heard a certain story. They say that every March there is a major accident at the hospital. Our hero then says that he also hopes for a calm night, but his colleague has no idea what's going on in his head. While Gyeon-wook continues lifting weights, our boy lies there in silence, because in his dream, the patient Kim Jung-soo actually passed away, and he feared that this would become reality. Suddenly, he sits up startled, trying to push away those bad thoughts. But the worry remains etched on his face because he can't forget. Then, with a determined look, our protagonist sits on the bed, because he can't stay still. He quickly runs to his desk, leaving Jun-wook quite confused by the scene. His colleague asks if he's going to study, and our hero says he's just going to research one thing. Jun-wook is shocked to see that he is reading a book about heart disease in the middle of his internship. Our boy knows it's crazy, but he wants to prepare for that 1 in a million chance, and the clock kept ticking, marking almost 2 in the morning on that tense night. Meanwhile, your roommate is already fast asleep, snoring loudly. But our protagonist remains focused on his books, not stopping studying for a single second. He spends the whole night there, turning the pages and absorbing all the knowledge he can. Already exhausted, the boy stretches because studying and answering calls is very tiring. Suddenly, an emergency alarm goes off very loudly in the hospital. The call is for the 17th floor, and Gonwook wakes up startled. Our hero then runs off with his friend right behind him. A resuscitation call is the most serious emergency that can happen in a hospital. Right after that, Yunsei also appears running and joins them in the elevator. Our protagonist calls out to her, and she seems quite surprised by the situation. The young woman says she doesn't know who had the cardiac arrest because everything was calm. As soon as the door opens, everyone runs towards the treatment room. But upon arrival, they are greeted by a doctor who is quite angry. Dr. Kim yells at them for being late and careless. The group then apologizes, and the doctor tells them to prepare for resuscitation. The rule is clear. Compressions must continue for at least 30 minutes. Immediately afterwards, they begin the procedure on the unconscious patient. But upon closer inspection, our boy feels a shiver down his spine, because the patient on the stretcher was exactly Mr. Kim Jung-soo from her nightmare. Our hero is left speechless, wondering if his nightmare is really happening. Dr. Kim then orders the defibrillator to be charged to 200 joules for the shock. With a loud noise, the device discharges electricity into the patient's chest. But since it doesn't work, the doctor asks to charge it again without hesitation. And once again, the shock is applied with all the force they have. To everyone's relief, the heart rate finally returns to normal. The monitor shows stable vital signs, and the emergency ends there. The other interns breathe a sigh of relief after all the tension of the moment. However, Dr. Kim takes advantage of the situation to give everyone a general scolding. He says that the longer they take to arrive, the less time they have to save the patient. Immediately afterwards, he asks a surprise question to test their knowledge. The interns are at a loss for words because the pressure is too great. The doctor then mocks them, saying that they can't answer right away. Our boy feels the sweat running down his face because he can't let things stay like this. Before Dr. Kim can continue the humiliation, he raises his hand and answers the question. Dr. Kim looks serious and impressed by the quick response. Our boy then continues explaining the entire procedure correctly, and for every question the doctor asks, he has the answer on the tip of his tongue. Without dropping the ball, he answers another question with complete confidence, leaving Dr. Kim speechless with the sheer amount of knowledge he demonstrated. Once again, our protagonist gets the medication dosage exactly right, leaving his fellow interns completely speechless. Cobra then falls silent for a moment, clearly surprised, and with a slight smile, he acknowledges that at least one of them is alert. But the truth is that our hero only knew everything because of his dream. Dr. Kim then scolds the other interns who did not respond again. He becomes furious and humiliates the Youngkook graduates for losing to a freshman. Shame overwhelms the boys who don't know where to hide their faces. The doctor orders them all to disappear from his sight as quickly as possible, and as they walk away, his classmates thank our boy for saving them. Jung Wook then complains about Dr. Kim's awful personality. Meanwhile, our hero thinks that even though the patient is doing well, he feels that something is missing. Immediately afterwards, he remembers that in his dream, Mr. Kim left at 3:22. Looking at his cell phone, our boy sees that it is now 2:40 in the morning. That dream time keeps hammering in your head non-stop for a second, because everything that has happened so far has been exactly like your nightmare. And if the dream comes true again, the patient will leave in 40 minutes. Because of this, he stops walking and tells his friends to go ahead. He says that something about the patient is bothering him, and that's why he's coming back. Yeon-soo then decides to go along to help figure out what's wrong, and so the two of them run back to the patient's room. Upon arriving there, they find Mr. Kim sleeping peacefully. Our protagonist then asks if she noticed anything strange about him. The young woman remembers crossing paths with the patient in the hallway earlier, and she reveals that she smelled a strong odor of cigarettes coming from him. Our protagonist is surprised by information about cigarettes. Yeon-soo confirms that she smelled it but ended up forgetting about it because of work. So he thinks that smoking isn't fatal at the time, but what if the patient couldn't withstand it? This shows that Mr. Kim's addiction was much more serious than it seemed. That's why our boy runs to the computer to check the patient's chart. And there he discovers that the man's smoking history is 80 packs a year. The patient's medical record leaves our hero completely shocked. Our protagonist then realizes that the situation is much more serious, because in addition to everything else, he has hypertension, diabetes, and high cholesterol, and the capacity of his heart to pump blood was only 35%. Hyun-seo is also startled and says it would be normal to have complications. The surgery he underwent was to widen the arteries of his heart. This procedure uses a metal tube to keep the passage open, but our hero doesn't understand how the patient left if he had improved. Desperate, he tries to remember every detail of his dream, tearing his hair out. Our hero tries to remember any clue from the dream. Suddenly a light bulb goes off, and he remembers the term refractory ventricular fibrillation. And if that happens, the chance of the patient dying is extremely high. Rushing to the monitor, he points out to Yeon-se that something seems very wrong with the rhythm. The track layout is gradually changing, and some strange waves are appearing. The girl didn't quite understand, but now that he's spoken, she notices the difference. That's why our boy says he needs to warn them that the patient is in danger. Yeon-seo is then quite shocked and asks if he's serious. However, when I told Dr. Kim, the reaction was not good at all. Cobra gets furious and asks if a compliment made him think he can teach him. Our protagonist tries to apologize, but the doctor doesn't want to hear it. With a threatening look, he says he won't accept a newbie giving orders. Our boy stands there sweating profusely, not knowing what to do. Dr. Kim then turns his back to him, completely irritated, and with one finger he points to our hero's shoulder, giving an order. Cobra then yells, telling him to do what he was told and stop interfering. Our boy regrets having said something and is thinking of just going back to his seat. But Dr. Kim doesn't take it lying down and confronts him in a very defiant manner. To our hero's surprise, he tells him to continue and give his opinion. The doctor asks if he is the type to raise problems without having a solution. And with a mocking look, he says that diagnosing and treating is the basic job of a doctor. Cobra then presses him, asking if he's afraid of the responsibility. With no turning back now, our boy swallows hard and decides to speak. With great courage, he says that the patient may need ECMO. Dr. Kim is surprised and asks what ECMO is, as if he didn't know. This device functions as an artificial heart outside the patient's body. But the doctor gets annoyed and asks what the intern is thinking. He even mocks us by asking if our hero has ever seen an ECMO machine at his failing college. Cobra shouts, saying that the device isn't a cure-all. But our boy counters by saying that this possibility cannot be ruled out. Dr. Kim then gives our hero a smirk of pure mockery. He asks if the newcomer's opinion is that the fibrillation will return. Our boy firmly confirms and realizes that he has just dug his own grave, because now he's sure he won't get a good evaluation from the resident. Our protagonist was expecting a scolding, but what came next was unexpected. Dr. Kim says that the possibility is not entirely impossible. Then he picks up the phone and makes an important call. He speaks with someone named Dong-sop, who is also on duty that day. Our hero and Yeon-seo stand there, completely bewildered by what's going on. It turns out that Dr. Kim called thoracic surgery, and he asked them to prepare the ICU for patient Mr. Kim. The doctor then turns to our boy and asks if he is satisfied. Our protagonist thanks him, somewhat awkwardly, but relieved by his gesture. Cobra then says that he has never seen an intern like him, and that he will remember his name. And with a serious look, he repeats the name of our hero, Shin Son-han. After Dr. Kim leaves the room, Yeon-seo and our hero remain standing there. The girl then lets out a sigh of relief after all that tension. With a smile, she compliments our boy, saying he was amazing. Our protagonist gets a little embarrassed and says he doesn't even know where he got the courage from. But Yeon-seo insists that he was very cool to confront Cobra head-on, and with a sincere look, she says that he seemed like a real doctor. Our hero appreciates the compliment, but is still worried about the patient. The two then remain there in the ICU monitoring Mr. Kim's vital signs. The monitor shows that everything is stable and the heart is beating normally. Looking at the clock, our boy sees that it is already 3 in the morning. He then thinks that if the dream is true, the second stop should happen soon. Suddenly, he realizes that Yonsei is almost falling asleep next to him. With a start, he wakes her before she collapses to the floor from exhaustion. The girl tries to hide it, but sleep is overwhelming her. Our protagonist then tells her to go back and rest a bit. He says they've already checked enough, and that he must have worried for nothing. But just as he turns to leave, the monitor starts beeping non-stop. The two then stare at the device with wide eyes of pure astonishment. Immediately afterwards, a nurse comes in shouting that it's ventricular fibrillation. The cardiac resuscitation alarm sounds once again throughout the hospital. The girl calls for a doctor, and our hero stands there motionless for a moment. But with no time to lose, our protagonist takes off his lab coat and jumps into action. He then yells for Yeon-so to grab the air balloon to help with her breathing. With his hands on the patient's chest, he confirms that the dream was real after all. Now he wonders how he's going to manage this crazy situation. Dr. Kim arrives, running in desperately with another doctor right behind him. As soon as he enters the room, he asks what happened, and Yeon-so shouts that it's atrial fibrillation. With no time to lose, Cobra orders the others to switch places so he can continue the massage. He takes over the procedure himself and starts counting 1, 2, 3 to keep the rhythm. But our hero realizes that the scene is exactly like the one in his nightmare. The same screams and the same frantic rush to try and save the patient's life. He then remembers that it was all the scene he saw in his dream. Soon after, one of the doctors warns that it is still fibrillation and asks to stop the massage. Cobra then orders the defibrillator to be charged to 200 joules to deliver the shock. Our boy is terrified, because if things continue like this, Mr. Kim will to depart this world for a better one in a few moments. Meanwhile, outside the room, the patient's daughter cries incessantly. The view from above shows the medical team doing everything they can but without success. Our protagonist then feels useless for not being able to change the future. But suddenly he yells at Yonsei to get out of the way because he had an idea. And then the team he called comes running in with a huge piece of equipment. Our hero smiles with relief because the only salvation for the patient had arrived. It was the thoracic surgery team led by specialist Song Yuju. Without wasting a second, the doctor asks how long the patient has been immobile. Our boy nervously replies that there have already been 6 cycles, which is 12 minutes. Dr. Song then puts on the gloves and announces that she will be using both femoral arteries. Next, a green sheet is thrown over the patient's body. The fabric covers the bottom part with 2 holes for the procedure, and so the team prepares to begin ECMO insertion. The doctor explains that she will start on the medial side to find the vein first. With a needle in her hand, she begins to pierce to find the right spot. Soon after, the blood enters the syringe, confirming that she found the vein. She then asks her assistant for the guide wire, who delivers it immediately. With great precision, the wire is inserted to guide the catheter. One of the doctors then warns that the guide wire has entered the inferior vena cava. Next, a larger tube is placed to complete the first part. Dr. Song then says that the next step is to find the artery. Our hero is impressed by the precision of the entire process. However, when trying to draw blood from the artery, the blood does not enter the syringe. The attending physician looks very worried about the situation, and then he immediately warns that the blood has suddenly stopped flowing. Dr. Song then orders that the chest compressions on the patient be stopped, and calmly, she asks him to pull the syringe back out slowly. The blood then refills the syringe, showing that it worked. The doctor asks if he succeeded, and the boy confirms, relieved. The doctor then instructs him to push the guide wire very slowly. The boy successfully reports that the guide wire has entered the artery. With everything in place, a hand finally switches on the ECMO machine. The equipment starts working and drawing blood from the patient. Next, the blood passes through 2 tubes connected to the machine, and then it is returned to the already oxygenated body. Thus, the artificial heart begins to circulate blood through the patient. The machine shows that the flow is good and there is no recirculation, and to everyone's relief, Mr. Kim's breathing returns to normal. Dr. Song then congratulates the team on their good work. Our hero and Yeon-so let out a sigh of relief at the outcome. Suddenly, our boy looks at the clock and sees that it is 3:22. It was precisely the time when the patient departed from his nightmare. But this time, Mr. Kim was still alive and breathing. The ECMO machine saved him by functioning as a second heart. Soon after, an older doctor arrives asking what happened. Dr. Kim explains that the rhythm hasn't returned, which is why they called for surgery. Dr. Song then says that it was Dr. Kim who requested the ECMO. Cobra is surprised and looks at our hero, completely confused. The older doctor then congratulates him on the excellent work. Our boy then gives an awkward smile and says that was a close call. After all the tension, he goes to the waiting room, which is empty. With some coins in his hand, he prepares to get a drink. Our protagonist then stands there in front of the vending machine, because he finally realizes that he actually saw the future. Suddenly, Yeon-so appears and asks if he's all right, because he looks pale. The girl says she was only helping with the air balloon, and even so, she is exhausted. Curious, she asks how he knew the patient was going to relapse. Because for her, everything was too perfect to be just a coincidence. Our hero then claims it was just a hunch he had. The girl becomes suspicious but doesn't have time to press the issue. Then suddenly, Dr. Kim appears behind them out of nowhere. Cobra then tells them to get out of the way if they're not going to get a drink. Immediately afterwards, a can of coffee falls from the vending machine. The doctor picks up the drink and turns to speak to our protagonist. He admits that this time our hero's words were right, and that moving the patient and calling the ECMO team was a masterstroke. But Cobra tells him not to get cocky because of that. He then throws the coffee can to our boy, who is surprised. And with a smile on his face, the doctor congratulates him on the good work. Dr. Kim then turns and walks away, leaving the two behind. Our boy and Yeon-so stand there watching the doctor walk away. Suddenly, the girl lets out a very loud scream, startling our protagonist. She says that our hero just received a confession of love. Yeon-so explains that Cobra giving someone a drink is an extremely rare event. Our hero then takes a deep breath and tries to ignore his friend's craziness, but he still wonders how that dream perfectly predicted the future. Without wanting to think about it too much, he decides to simply forget what happened. In the end, he managed to save a patient's life, and that's what matters. Time passes, and life in the hospital remains as hectic as ever. After 3 weeks, our hero finally gets a day off with his friend. Jian-wook then calls him to go to the gym, but our boy just wants to sleep. Suddenly, Yeon-so appears and slaps our protagonist on the back. She even jokes that his broad back is great for hitting. Soon after, the young woman asks how Mr. Kim's surgery went. Apparently, the operation was a success, and he should be discharged soon. Our boy then smiles with relief, knowing that the patient is doing well. Then Yeon-se invites him to go out with the internship group. She says that one of the veterans invited all the interns out for drinks. Jian-wook refuses the invitation, and Yeon-so drags our hero along with her. Our hero complains that he just wanted to go home to sleep, but Yeon-so doesn't care at all. She says the weather is too good to waste the day just sleeping, and so the two arrive at a chicken restaurant to meet the staff. Yeon-so enters excitedly and greets the group who were already waiting. Immediately, everyone celebrates her arrival, calling her the goddess of the college. The girl is embarrassed by the compliment and pulls our boy to sit with her. However, one of the interns really doesn't like seeing our hero there with the girl. The boy then slams his glass on the table with a grumpy expression. He complains that he hasn't had a day off since the internship started. Another intern then teases him, saying that's just how life is for interns. The boy stands up, raises his glass and shouts that he's going to get drunk tonight. Meanwhile, our protagonist stands there quietly, just observing their party. He feels a little out of place because everyone seems to have known each other for a long time. Suddenly, the intern who was complaining approaches him and asks his name. He then offers our hero a drink in a very friendly manner. The boy pours a drink for our boy and asks if he is adjusting. But Yeon-so interrupts and asks if he hasn't heard the rumor about our hero. She then tells everyone that Seon-han confronted Dr. Kim last week. The bar, which had been noisy, falls completely silent for a moment. The other interns are shocked and joke that the world is going to end. Suddenly, everyone starts praising our hero and offering him drinks. Our boy then drinks with them and thinks that at least he won't be excluded. The conversation then changes, and one of them asks which specialty each one will pursue. Ultimately, there are many options such as pediatrics, plastic surgery, and dermatology. And this is the most important decision because it defines a doctor's career. One of the boys says he's thinking about radiology, but his friend makes fun of him. Another intern talks about anesthesiology, which has become quite popular lately. They then ask Yeon-so if she still wants to specialize in pediatrics, but she is hesitant. Our hero then suggests dermatology, and the young woman is somewhat embarrassed by the compliment. Apparently, the most popular specialties are the ones that bring in the most money. Basically, these are areas where you can open a clinic and get rich more easily. Yeon-so then asks our protagonist which specialty he wants to pursue. The other intern is also curious to know the choice of someone from outside the company. Our boy replies that he is thinking of pursuing a career in general surgery, and he even adds that he thought the thoracic surgery was pretty cool. Everyone's reaction is understandable, as surgery is one of the most avoided procedures. After all, she is dangerous, exhausting, and extremely brutal with doctors. Our hero then remains silent for a moment before giving his answer. In his mind, he recalls the image of a surgeon entering the operating room. The doctor then asks for the scalpel, and our boy says that it's simply incredible. The other interns start laughing and making fun of our hero's choice. Even so, they toast with him, saying that the choice was nice and refreshing. But deep down, our protagonist knows they're just mocking him. Suddenly, the drunken intern says that our hero didn't choose willingly. He even humiliates him by saying that someone from a failing college has no choice. One of the boy's friends then gets annoyed and tells him to shut up. The drunkard doesn't stop and says that everyone is faking it to have one less competitor. Completely out of his mind, he continues shouting and spouting a lot of nonsense. Suddenly, his face turns completely red, and he prepares to vomit. The boy then runs out with his hand over his mouth so as not to make a mess of the whole bar. Our hero then wonders why that guy hates him so much. One of the interns then calms him down, telling him not to pay attention to the drunk. Our protagonist understands that not everyone in the hospital is going to be a good person. He reflects that high grades and a good personality don't go hand in hand, and dealing with lives doesn't mean a person is emotionally mature. Suddenly his eyes widen as he senses something strange again. A blue light shines around you, and everything goes dark for a moment. Once again, he finds himself alone in that dark, starry place. Meanwhile, in the real world, a shouting match suddenly breaks out in the bar. Apparently, the drunk intern got sick and fell amidst the bottles. Suddenly, in his vision, his friends run to help him, covered in blood. His injured version then appears in front of his astral form in that place. With wide eyes, our hero wakes up from his trance in a very startled state. He returns to reality and Yeon-so calls him, worried about his reaction. The girl asks what happened, but our boy pretends nothing happened and says it was nothing. With his hand on his head, he wonders if he's had that strange dream again. He remembers the last time and fears the same thing will happen now. However, he tries to convince himself that it's all just a coincidence. Then he tells Yeon-so that he's going to the bathroom really quickly. Our boy regrets going out because exhaustion is making him delirious. The atmosphere had already been ruined, so he decided to leave. But as he walks down the hallway, he sees the same beer crates from his dream. And just then, the drunken intern walks by, being carried by his friends. Our protagonist then touches the boxes to see if they are real. However, he realizes that the pile is unstable and about to fall at any moment. And as expected, the boxes and bottles all collapse onto the floor. A commotion starts in the bar, and everyone runs to see what happened. Yeon-so asks if our hero is all right, and he confirms that he is. But looking to the side, he sees that the drunkard was injured exactly as he had imagined. Our boy is in shock because he is now certain that he can see the future. Apparently, he wasn't just good with knives, but also with sewing. So time passed, and after much studying, the time for the college entrance exam arrived. But to his dismay, the result was a failure, and his father celebrated greatly. Undeterred, he went back to studying to try a second time, but he was rejected again, and his father even put on a show to celebrate. Even so, giving up was not an option, and he continued studying without stopping. And after all your effort and dedication, Wittalorb Neptichik, Hointu or Tenpikal. Finally, a congratulatory banner was hung on the family restaurant. On his third attempt, he finally became a medical student. He thought that if nothing went wrong, his dream would come true. However, upon arriving at the college, he found it closed, and in protest, our hero then falls to his knees, completely devastated. He couldn't believe that all his effort had been in vain. Desolate, he decides that the only way out is to return to the restaurant and cut fish. But in the end, he didn't give up, and now he's in front of the university hospital. The college closed, but luckily, our hero passed the medical licensing exam, and now he has been accepted as an intern at Yongguk University Hospital, which is one of the most prestigious in Korea. To give you an idea, the place serves 8,000 patients a day, and more than 2,000 are hospitalized. Naturally, the medical team there is huge, with thousands of professionals working non-stop. And the coolest thing is that Professor Baek Ui-shin, our boy's great inspiration, used to work there. That's why our protagonist takes a deep breath, because following in his idol's footsteps was his greatest motivation. But now, with a determined look, he knows that his journey to becoming a real doctor has only just begun. Back at the hospital, our hero is now trying to understand what is happening. He then summarizes everything he discovered about his new power in a notebook. First, he notices that time stops when he has a premonition. Then he realizes that the visions show accidents that are going to happen nearby. And lastly, he understands that the time it takes for the future to happen is quite irregular. With only 2 cases, he knows it's still early, but fears it could happen again. That's why he's already starting to think about what he's going to do the next time it happens. Our protagonist knows that from now on, he will have to make a difficult choice. He then notes that he can change the future with his own hands, or simply let fate take its natural course without interfering. With a determined look, he writes that with his choice, he can change the future. Time passes, and your last day as an internal medicine intern finally arrives. And as usual, he will deliver the food to one of his patients. The old lady is happy to see him, but sad to know that it is his last day there. Our boy then reassures her, saying that he won't go far. He offers to draw her blood, and the old woman compliments his delicate hands. She still complains that when other doctors perform the procedure, it always hurts, and with his masterly skill with blades, he hits the vein on the first try. Our protagonist then smiles and says that he did it as quickly and painlessly as possible. The old lady is sorry because she really wanted to introduce her granddaughter to him. The old lady then says that her granddaughter is the spitting image of her. Our boy asks her age, and she replies that the girl is 11 years old. In the hallway, a nurse compliments him on drawing blood so well. The girl explains that you can tell right away who has talent. Medical procedures range from drawing blood to major surgeries, and to be a good surgeon, you need to master everything from the internship onwards. Our hero then asks the head nurse what she thinks of him. With a thumbs up, she says he has the best hands she's ever seen. She also says that he treats patients well and will be a great doctor. Our boy pretends to be super excited about her compliment. As they walk away, the nurse asks what their next rotation is. Suddenly, Dr. Kim appears and calls him a brat. Cobra then orders our hero to follow him for a moment. The two end up stopping in front of some vending machines. To his surprise, Dr. Kim offers him a can of coffee. He asks what the next rotation is, and Seon-han says it's an emergency. The doctor comments that it will be very difficult and asks about a certain Bong Chael. Then he asks if our boy still wants the surgery area. Our protagonist is shocked to find that there are no secrets in that hospital. Cobra says it's a good thing, because he would have finished him off if he had chosen internal medicine. Our hero then jokes that he now finds internal medicine quite charming. But Dr. Kim gets furious and orders him to get out of there immediately. After throwing the coffee can away, our boy is left confused by the reaction. Cobra then approaches and tells him not to embarrass him. With a smile on his face, he congratulates him on the good work he did last month. Our protagonist is overjoyed and responds with a resounding yes. He then reflects that depending on his attitude, everything can change in the hospital. And so the month of March comes to an end and a new journey awaits you. However, upon arriving at the emergency medical center, he already senses that he's screwed. There are 8 interns working in 24-hour shifts. Our boy stands there but soon finds his first teammate. The boy's name is Oh Jung-won, and he is known as the laziest intern. Then he sees Jo Jin-gi, another classmate, who has a broken arm. Our hero is distraught at having been caught with those two. Jung-won then starts scolding Jing-gi for hurting his hand. The boy defends himself by saying that he can't do anything and will stay like this for a month. Jung-won is annoyed because if he can't work, it will fall on others. Our protagonist feels a chill because the emergency is already difficult, and with one less colleague, the situation becomes even worse. Jung-won asks what they are going to do, and our hero says they will have to work hard. But the lazybones says that in reality, he will depend entirely on our boy. And to make matters worse, the two surround him, calling him an ace, and saying they're counting on him. Our protagonist then becomes worried because he has always had bad luck with group projects. Suddenly, a girl walks by, and he sees her as a giant hamster in a lab coat. He rubs his eyes vigorously, thinking he's going crazy, and when he opens them again, he sees the last member of his group. Jung-won recognizes her immediately and excitedly calls her Ham so dumb. The girl then turns to them with a very serious expression. The slacker explains that she is a super royalty of the university, because her entire family consists of university professors. He also advises our hero to stay by her side to get along well. Immediately afterwards, Jung-won shows some bags full of drinks. Jing-gi starts eating, but his friend scolds him, saying that food is for the teachers. Our boy then offers so damn a drink, trying to be nice. She looks up from her phone and stares directly at him. Her reaction makes him feel a little awkward for a moment. He then thinks that while she is royalty, he is just a nobody. With a sigh, he wonders how he's going to survive with that crazy team. Suddenly, the door to the room opens and a doctor enters complaining of the heat. Ao Bongchol was a third-year emergency medicine resident. Immediately, the whole group bows in a sign of respect. The doctor then smiles and wonders how he will transform those interns into doctors. Dr. Bong Chael then sends the interns to follow him on a tour. Suddenly, he stops and asks if they know what an apocalypse is. Jung-won gets very nervous and replies that it's the end of the world. With a smile on his face, the doctor confirms that he knows very well. Immediately afterwards, he says that that place is exactly that. And when the emergency room doors open, the group is in a state of shock. The place is total chaos, with shouting and running everywhere. Stretchers arrive constantly with patients in serious condition. Cries of pain echo through the corridors, creating a very heavy atmosphere. Our interns just stand there not knowing what to do. The doctor then welcomes them to the medical apocalypse. The group remains paralyzed by the chaotic scene they witness. Even though it's morning, all the beds in the emergency room are already occupied. The cases are extremely varied, ranging from a young woman with a stomachache, even a boy who was bitten by a dog, and a worker who was injured. That is completely different from internal medicine, where the cases were similar. The doctor then asks what the purpose of a hospital emergency room is. Jung-won replies that it is obviously for treating patients with urgent needs. Bong Chel explains that they treat the most serious cases and then distribute them to other areas. That's why he says that in the emergency room you need to be good in all clinical fields. The group then responds in unison that they understood everything perfectly. Thus, Dr. Bong Charo leads them to the battlefield of the emergency. There he begins the consultation with a young woman who is suffering from severe stomach pain. Carefully, he lays her down on the examination table and begins to examine her abdomen. The patient then complains, saying that the pain is only in the upper part. Next, the doctor explains to the interns that all the tests came back normal. Because of this, he concludes that it is not appendicitis, but rather gastritis. However, he warns her to come running back if the pain shifts to the right side. After dismissing her, the doctor says they will take care of these simpler cases, and so he goes on to see other patients, giving very quick diagnoses. Fortunately, the dog bite on the boy wasn't very deep. The foreign worker will need to have a few stitches in his finger. Our protagonist is very impressed by the doctor's skill, for he looks like a god with multiple arms taking care of everything at once. Hwang Chael then reinforces that they must be quick and efficient in their service. Right after that, he shows a to-do list that is already completely full. With a smile, he jokes that the important thing is simply not to cause accidents. Finally, the doctor distributes the tasks and tells everyone to start working. Time passes and the routine at the university hospital continues at full speed. Completely exhausted, our hero finally stops for a bit to have lunch. The whole morning was crazy and our hero doesn't even remember how many patients he saw. He then complains that he will have to keep up this pace for 24 hours without stopping. Upon arriving at the cafeteria, he finds his colleague Ham Sodam already eating. The girl seems very focused on her food and her cell phone at the same time. Our boy then sits down with her and comments that the morning was quite busy, but she responds with a simple yes without even looking at him. Our protagonist is somewhat embarrassed by the snub he just received. Even so, he tries to be optimistic and says that little by little they are getting closer, but the girl still has the same unfriendly expression as before. He realizes she's the difficult type but decides he's going to try to get closer. Then he offers her one of his fried shrimp, but she cuts it up right away. The atmosphere becomes incredibly heavy, and the distance between them only grows. Undeterred, he asks about Dr. Kim, but she says she doesn't know him, and once again the conversation dies right there without even having properly begun. As a last resort, he comments that the emergency room is more fun than the internal room. Suddenly, the girl slams her cell phone on the table with a very unpleasant look on her face. She then looks at him and asks what exactly is fun about all of this. Our hero gets confused, and she lists all the problems of the emergency. Angrily, Sodam stands up and shouts, asking how this could possibly be fun. She also says that if a doctor makes a mistake, they get yelled at, and that there's not even 1% of fun in it. She then yells that she hates being a doctor, and especially treating patients. Furthermore, she also recounts that a few years ago, a patient attacked an inmate. Because of the trauma, the young man ended up giving up on becoming a doctor altogether. The girl then asks if he doesn't find it frightening to have to go through this. Sitting down again, she confides that she doesn't understand why everyone wants to be a doctor. Our hero then asks why she became a doctor if she doesn't like it. Somewhat awkwardly, she replies that it was because her parents told her to. He then realizes that she lives in a completely different world from his. Many people end up becoming doctors just because of their high grades, or because their parents force them to pursue a career they don't have the vocation for. Sodam then says that he will do the internship in a moderate way and then go to an area that does not treat patients. Suddenly, the girl becomes completely dark and trembles uncontrollably, but then she immediately returns to normal and sighs with relief. With the utmost audacity, she then points to his shrimp, and remember that he had offered her one earlier. He is confused because she had said she didn't eat that, but the girl says she looked again, and now it looks quite delicious. Our boy then jokingly says that he can't take it anymore and that it's all his. But he was just joking and offered her the rest. While she eats, he thinks that despite everything, she is a very honest person. In the end, our hero thinks he's going to get along with her. Time passes, and night falls at Yongguk University Hospital. In the doctor's room, Bong Chael is at the computer writing the evaluations. It starts with Jingi, who due to injury hasn't been able to train properly. Next, he assesses Jungwon, who despite being laid back has quick reactions. However, upon arriving in Sodam, the doctor describes it as a headache, because despite being intelligent, she lacks confidence and repeats the same mistakes. Therefore, he decides to be cold and gives her a very low rating. Finally, he thinks about our hero, who is doing better than expected. Even coming from a failing college, his skills and sincerity are remarkable, but he doesn't stand out as a medical genius either. The doctor then sits there thinking because our boy's case is quite ambiguous. In the second week of his internship, our protagonist searches for Jungwon. The lazybones then appears and throws one of his tasks onto our hero. The patient was an elderly lady with veins that were very difficult to find. Our boy realizes right away that he passed the assignment on purpose, but his friend pretends not to notice. Suddenly, the boys wondered where Sodam had gone because she had disappeared. Immediately afterwards, a very loud scream echoed through the hospital corridor. They then see a huge man yelling at Sodam, near a bed. The girl stood there, sweating profusely, completely terrified by the situation. The furious man yells that she left his father's arm all punctured. He still complains that she couldn't hit a needle in 20 minutes. From afar, Jungwon comments that Sodam finally caused an incident. Arterial blood collection is a common but very difficult task for interns. The man then loses his temper and starts shouting, calling for a nurse. The young woman explains that because it is an arterial test, only doctors can perform it. The man gets angry and shouts that she doesn't seem like a real doctor. Her teammates just call her pathetic for not being able to do something simple. Seeing the situation, our protagonist decides that he needs to do something. He then interrupts the fight and says he will do the collection in her place. The man asks who he is, and our hero replies that he is also a doctor. Without wasting any time, he grabs a wheeled stool and goes to the patient. Our boy apologizes and says it's difficult to find the vein in strong people. But the man gets angry, and our hero says that the patient looks like his own father, but in reality it was all a lie, because his father is quite different. He knows that building a bond of trust with the patient is the most important step. Calmly, he asks the gentleman to sit down for a moment while the procedure is carried out. The son then threatens him, saying he will destroy the hospital if he makes a mistake. With a smile, our protagonist assures us that everything will be all right. Because unlike Sodam, he gained a lot of experience in the last month. In the intern, first our hero asks the guardian to press the patient's right wrist. The man then obeys and holds his father's arm with a cloth. Our boy asks you to stay very still in that position. But upon looking at the patient's arm, he sees that the situation is quite serious. Normally, arterial blood is drawn from the artery that passes through the wrist. And because the arteries are deeper, you need to feel the pulse to find them. But with his arm all bruised, he can't feel anything there. Therefore, he decides to look for the vein in a place higher up on the arm. He then remembers a brilliant surgeon named Song Yuju. She was so good that she could find patients' veins without even hesitating. Our protagonist is inspired by her and decides that he absolutely cannot fail. Very carefully, he begins to search for the man's pulse in his arm. He concentrates and tries to feel any sign of the artery there. Suddenly, he feels a slight pulse and manages to find the vein. With wide eyes, he rejoices because he has finally found the right place. He then warns the patient that it will hurt a little, but to hold on tight. With the needle in hand, our hero begs the artery not to run away. The patient's son becomes tense and asks if this time it will all work out. However, the blood does not begin to fill the syringe as it should. The man and Sodam look at him with expressions of pure disappointment. However, the syringe remains empty, and the air pressure only increases. But suddenly, the blood finally begins to fill the tube. The collection was a success, and our hero gets the sample. Next, he prepares the vial to store the patient's blood. With a smile, he announces that the procedure is finally over. He even jokes that they suffered a lot for so little. The patient then comments that he barely felt the sting this time. The son is so grateful that he even tries to give him a tip. Our boy refuses, and even defends Sodam, saying she was unlucky. With a smile, the man thanks him and says he feels more relieved now. Suddenly, Dr. Bong Chael appears running down the hallway. He says he heard they couldn't find the vein and brought an ultrasound. Our protagonist then informs him that he has just finished collecting the money. Bong Chael asks how he found the vein, and our hero says it was with his hand. Impressed, the doctor praises him and says that he is very good. However, he advises you to wait for the ultrasound if it fails again. Then he turns to Sodam with a very unpleasant expression. The girl keeps her head down, completely embarrassed by the situation. The doctor then lets out a long sigh of pure disappointment. Finally, he tells her to go to the bathroom to compose herself and then return to work. Sodam bows in respect and obeys the doctor. She then turns and walks towards the door of the emergency center. Bong Chael asks our hero to take care of her because one slip-up would turn her into a malig. Our protagonist is confused by the term, which is an abbreviation for evil. The word is used to insult a colleague with a bad reputation, and being called that by other doctors is the worst thing that can happen. Sometime later, our boy is outside the hospital. A young woman who was with him asks him to take good care of Sodam. The young woman is another inmate and says she feels very sorry for her teammate. She then reveals that Sodam suffered a lot of bullying in medical school. Our hero is shocked because he thought she would be popular because she was royalty. The inmate explains that this was precisely her biggest problem. Because of family pressure, Everyone judged her for the smallest mistakes. Our boy then understands that the pressure has made her increasingly shy. The girl asks for help, but he says he can barely take care of himself. However, he says he can help a little, but everyone has to do their part. The inmate insists because she is worried that Sodam will make a big mistake. Our protagonist finds it difficult because the work of an intern is limited. He then reassures her and says that nothing serious will happen in just 1 month. But suddenly his eyes widen because he is having a new premonition. Suddenly, the world stops, and our hero has a new vision of the future. With his body trembling, he wonders if this is happening again. In his vision, a voice calls out to all the emergency room trainees. He then sees the whole group gathered in front of one of the chief doctors. The chief resident shouts that in all his time there he has never seen anything like it. To his dismay, our boy realizes that he is also being punished. The doctor then reveals that everyone's evaluation that month was a C. Our protagonist is shocked, because a C grade so early is the end of the line. If that happens, your career at the university hospital ends that year. Furious, the doctor shouts and asks what on earth they did to cause this.